Moses was upset because he understood the danger that they were in. And they didn't understand it. I've been teaching you. I've been preaching to you. I've been walking with you. I sleep in tents next to you. We eat together. We do everything together. You should know me by now. Yet as soon as I go do the will of the Lord, you turn against me and go and do your own thing. That's enough to get upset about. He said he took that thing and pulverized it, made it dust, put it in their water and said, here, drink. You want God so bad, here, drink your God. In 1857, let me tell you this story. There was a 46-year-old man named Jeremiah who lived in New York City. Jeremiah loved the Lord tremendously, but he didn't feel that he could do much for the Lord until he began to feel a burden for the lost and accepted an invitation from his church to be an inner city missionary. So July of 1857, he started walking up and down the streets of New York, passing out tracts and talking to people about Jesus. He wasn't having any success. Then God put it on his heart to try prayer. So he printed up a bunch of tracts and he passed them out to anyone and everyone he met. He invited anyone who wanted to come to the third floor of the old North Dutch Reformed Church on Fulton Street in New York City from 12 to 1 on Wednesday to pray. He passed out hundreds and hundreds of flyers and put up posters everywhere he could. When Wednesday came, at around noon, nobody showed up. So Jeremiah got on his knees and started praying. For 2 weeks he prayed and no one came. The third week he began to pray. For 30 minutes he prayed by himself when finally 5 other people walked in. The next week 20 people came. The next week 30 people and 40 people. Then they decided to meet every Wednesday from 12 to 1 to pray for the city. Before long, a few ministers started coming and they said, we need to start this at our churches. Within 6 months, there were over 5,000 prayer groups meeting every day in New York. Soon the word spread all over the country. Prayer meetings were started in Philadelphia, Detroit, and Washington, D.C. In fact, President Franklin Pierce started going almost every day to a noonday prayer meeting. By 1859, some 15,000 cities in America were having downtown prayer meetings every day at noon, and thousands were brought to Christ. The great thing about this revival is that there is not a famous preacher associated with it. It started with one man who began to pray. See, revival can start with you. Revival can begin in your neighborhood, in your city. You don't have to wait for a well-known preacher to come to town to get revival started. Revival can start with you at your house and on your street and on your job. It's not about who's coming or who's not coming. It's about you being diligent enough to say, God, we need a revival. So if it takes me getting it started and getting on my knees and praying, then I'll do that. We need revival in Cleveland. We need revival in Washington. But it's more than just us talking about the fact that we need it. It's about us doing something about it. What is revival? Revival is the visitation of God that brings to life Christians who have been sleeping. Some of you have been sleeping on your post, sleeping on your job, have not done what God has told you to do, have not gotten on your knees in prayer, have not fasted, have not told anybody about the Lord. Some of us are sleeping. Revival is an inrush of the Spirit and a time of refreshing. Yes, Lord, we need refreshing in our land. We need refreshing in our cities and in our communities. We need refreshing. Revival is when the dry and thirsty receive a drenching from the Lord. You know, sometimes we just need a fresh touch. Sometimes we just need God to pour out on us His Holy Spirit without measure. Sometimes we just need Him to blow on us or to swoop through the room, or to cleanse us or refresh us from the things that we go through on an everyday basis. Sometimes our everyday circumstances and trials wear us down. I'm only talking to a couple of people in here. Sometimes what we go through causes us to be bogged down, tired, to the point where we don't feel like moving. And sometimes we need a refreshing, a revival, a special touch. Not your everyday touch, but sometimes we just need a special touch. Revival is when one believer gets right with God and allows the Spirit of God to fill his or her life without wavering. See, we can all come in here every week like we do, all cute and dressed up with our makeup and our nice clothes on, and people not realize that you need to be revived. You look good. I like your new outfit. I like your hat. I like your jewelry. But deep down, you need a touch. Somebody need to recognize that I need a touch. See, we're so quick to get in and out of service. Okay, it was good. It's time to go. I got to go eat. But what if God asks you to linger for a few moments and meet the need of your neighbor, or meet the need of the one you don't even know, because they just need a touch. Revival is, I believe that we truly need a revival. Revival is when one believer gets right with God and allows the Spirit of God to fill his or her life. When each believer begins to realize their sin and turn to God, a revival will break out. When we all see, I didn't say sinners, I said each believer. Everybody keep looking straight ahead, and you won't feel like I'm picking on nobody. But there are times in our lives, and some of us are there right now, where we find ourselves in sin. Keep looking straight ahead. I ain't looking at nobody. We find ourselves in mess. We find ourselves in situations that God did not put us in. Don't put this on God. Put this on your bad judgment, your bad decision, or whatever. But this ain't God. Sometimes we find ourselves in situations, in areas of our life, and we don't remember how we got there. But we're there. When every believer realizes I need to turn from my sins. See, y'all used to be talking about the sinner, man. No, I'm talking about the saints. I just need a few folk that's going to be honest. Say, Pastor, sometimes I can be a mess. No? Not in this church? All right. Sometimes believers find themselves in situations that are not godly. And I believe that we need a revival. A soul-searching, heart-wrenching, old-fashioned, heaven-sent, Holy Ghost revival. Who needs to be revived? I'm glad you asked. Does we as a church need revival? I'm glad you asked that one too. Yes. Songwriter says, revive us again, fill each heart with thy love. May each soul be rekindled with the fire from above. We always need to draw closer to God on a daily basis. Yes, my friend, you need to be revived.